Okay, so today we are working on moon phases and eclipse. This should be page 11. You don't have to put in this part. Just make sure the essential question matches up. What is the cause of the phases of the moon? What are solar and lunar eclipses? And why does the same side of the moon always face the Earth? Flip into the anticipation guide. We see a full moon every 29.5 days because the moon is glowing. True or false? A solar eclipse occurs when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon. True or false? All right, flip back to the notes. The brightness of the moon is a reflection from the light given off from the sun. So it is reflected from the sun. That's why we can see the moon. The different shapes of the moon are called phases. So when you look up, it isn't always fully on display. Those are called phases. The moon goes through a set of phases each time it makes a complete revolution around the Earth. So it actually goes around 8 different phases. The first set we have, or the second set, is the waning. So this is when the moon is past the full moon, it's moving towards the full new moon, it is getting smaller. And one way I can remember waning is you're waving goodbye with your left hand. You're leaving with your left. All right, so wave goodbye with your left, leaving, losing moon, waning. All right. And then you have waxing. Waxing is when it is past the new moon, and it's going towards the full moon. So you wax on, think of Karate Kid, you wax on with your right. You wave goodbye with your left. Wax on, wane off. Okay? So, as you could see, I'm going to flip back real quick. You've got gibbous and crescent and quarter on top of new and full. What do those mean? Well, crescent, think of like crescent rolls. Those are like the C-shaped. So crescent is when the moon is past either a new moon or a full moon and only is a sliver to be seen. So this is all the way up to the quarter moon. So one way to think about it is it sounds like a croissant and the moon is lit just like it. So those look like the croissants. And those are both sides. You've got waning and waxing. So here's the waxing. Wax on with my right, wave off with my left. It's on the left-hand side. And then you got a thing called a first quarter. So all of these are first quarter. First quarter is when the half of the moon is lit from the right side. So you're waxing on with your right. It's on the right side. And it will only look like this. There's only one picture of it. Both of them are the same. Yeah, that's like at an angle, but that's just where we could see it. Then you have the third quarter, or the last quarter. That is going to be the opposite of the first quarter. It's going to be on your left because you're waning off. It's when the moon is lit on the left-hand side from our view. And then you have a thing called gibbous. Gibbous is when it is past the full moon or the first, past the first or third quarter. My bad. First or third quarter. Yeah. It says helpful hit. Gibbous, more light. Give us more light. I also think of, and it's so weird and I'm aging myself, if you've ever seen iCarly, you have Gibby. Gibby always likes to lift his shirt or you see most of his belly. Gibbous, Gibby. Give us more light. Give us more light. And then you have the new moon. It's very hard to see this. It's very, very light right here. But right here, the new moon is the side of the moon that is facing the Earth and is not illuminated. Right there. Right there. Then you have the opposite, which is the full moon, where you can see the whole of it. You see the entire face, and you notice this is the same face, just different sides of the same face. That means there's that spot. It's just a little bit shifted. Now we're going to get into the eclipse. So an eclipse is when the moon's shadow either hits the Earth or the Earth's shadow hits the moon. This is an eclipse. So there's an eclipse and there's an eclipse. They are both eclipses. We have different names for them. The first type we're going to look at was the one that I had over here. It's a solar eclipse. Think of solar, sun, solar panels, collects sun rays. It occurs when the moon is in between the sun and the earth. It passes directly between the earth and the sun. It blocks the sunlight from the earth. And this only happens in a small portion of the earth. And this is what it would look like if you went through a full solar eclipse. Again, if we get to one, please don't look at it like straight on. Just don't. It'll ruin your eyeballs. Just don't do it. Then you have a lunar eclipse. A lunar, think of, lunar, moon. Eclipse occurs at a full moon when the earth is directly between the moon and the sun. So you have the solar eclipse right here with the new moon and a lunar eclipse. So solar day, lunar night. That is when the earth literally blocks the sunlight from the moon. And remember, the moon only shines because it is reflecting the light off the sun. So if you block that, if you block the sun's lights or rays from hitting the moon, you can't see the moon anymore. All right. So part of the lunar eclipse is called a umbra and a penumbra. So the darkest part of the moon's shadow is the umbra. It is cone-shaped. The moon casts another part of its shadow that is less dark. I think I have the opposite side. Then the umbra, which is called the penumbra. This should actually be on the other side. So right here, you'd see the umbra. The penumbra would be more like that. Okay? Fun fact. The craters on the moon. Craters are large round pits, you can see them right there, that have been on the surface of the moon for billions of years. The reason for this is there are no liquids on the moon. There's no wind on the moon or atmosphere to wear it down like it does on Earth. Scientists believe that meteoroid, asteroids, and comets cause these craters found on the Earth's moon's surface. All right, quiz time. I would say phases and eclipses, quiz 4. All right, stop a sheet of paper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 1, a solar eclipse occurs when and where? When the earth is between the sun and the moon during a full moon, when the moon is between the sun and the earth at any time, when the moon is between the sun and the earth during a new moon, or when the earth is between the sun and the earth at any time. All right. Hopefully you answered B. So a solar eclipse, it's during the day. So it's when the moon is between the sun and the earth. And it can happen at any time. How are we able to see the moon's different phases? So the moon reflects light from the sun. The moon absorbs light from the sun. The moon creates its own light. Or the moon refracts light from the sun. This one's a little tricky because it could be like two things. It actually reflects, not refracts. So refracts is it would be bending the light. It doesn't do that. It doesn't absorb it, doesn't create it, it reflects it. How long does it take for the moon to go through a full set of phases? Is it 2 weeks, 24 hours, 29.5 days, or 365 days? So for this, it's 29.5 days. That is a month that it takes for the moon to go around us. What occurs when the earth is directly between the moon and the sun, and during which phase of the moon? So when the earth is between the moon and the sun. Is it a lunar eclipse and a new moon, a solar eclipse and a new moon, a lunar eclipse and the full moon, or a solar eclipse and the full moon? This is when the Earth is between the moon and the sun. This is the lunar eclipse during a full moon. All right, a full moon is visible when and the moon is located where? A full moon. Is it between the sun and the Earth? When the Earth is between the moon and the sun? When the moon is just past the sun? Or when the moon is about to pass the sun? This one is going to be when the moon, the Earth is between the moon and the sun. All right, go back to the anticipation questions. Number 7, we see a full moon every 29.5 days because the moon is glowing. True or false? Remember, this is the right-hand side. This is definitely going to be false. We see a full moon every 29.5 days because the moon is reflecting the light from the sun. All right, a solar eclipse occurs when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon. True or false? This is when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon. This is a false. This is a lunar eclipse. If it was the moon between the sun and the Earth, yes, but it is not. A lunar eclipse happens when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon. All right, let's go back to the notes. Bottom summary. What causes the phase of the moon? The moon has phases because it orbits the Earth. It revolves around the Earth. What are solar and lunar eclipse? A solar eclipse is when the moon is located between the sun and the Earth. A lunar eclipse happens when the Earth is in between the moon and the sun. What does the same side of the moon always, why does it always face? So we talked about this a little bit. The same side of the moon phases the Earth. Faces, I shouldn't say phases, faces the Earth because the moon rotates the same time as it revolves. That means it takes 29.5 days for it to revolve around the Earth and 25.9 days to rotate on its axis. All right, we are all done. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and I hope you guys have a nice day.